So the damage and the suffering caused from the collapse of the infrastructure in the target zone. And talked about, on the subject of blast effects, they do not scale linearly. Doubling the yield does not double the destruction radius. And approximate scaling its cube root. So in order to increase the destruction radius by a factor of 2, well, the yield of the weapon has to go up by a factor of 8. And this is why shifting away from really, really big bomb on the order of megatons in individual strikes occurred. And targeting doctrine was smaller weapons, but more of them, so using multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicles to cause more widespread destruction. Accuracy improvements meant that you could scale them down and still reliably hit your target, because that was part of the reason why historically nuclear weapons were more powerful. It's like, okay, even if you're off by a kilometer or so, you're still probably going to destroy what you intended to destroy. And it became more of a counter-force metric of how to hit the enemy's nuclear weapons once you assume both sides has access to nuclear weapons. So engineering optimization occurred rather than just having really big individual nuclear weapons to improve the accuracy, improve the reach and the range, and how to disable the enemy's nuclear weapons.
And we have magnified the power of that weapon by 100. We call them hydrogen bombs, just the way the sun makes energy, taking hydrogen atoms, bringing them together to make helium atoms. That also releases energy, way more energy than you'd get by fissioning heavy atoms.
So this is a bit of a simplification. So talking about thermonuclear weapons, they still use fission though. They use a fission primary to compress and ignite a fusion secondary. The sun operates through sustained gravitational inertial confinement fusion. Hydrogen bomb is more like briefly, and when I say briefly, I'm talking on the order of nanoseconds, creating stellar core conditions within the confines of a bomb casing, which is still pretty powerful when you think about it. That human civilization learned how to manufacture miniature artificial stars that can last for a nanosecond before they learn how to stop arguing online, even before they even invented the internet. We're a species with an interesting set of priorities here.
No longer is it kilotons, it's megatons. Not just...
You can get that high, but I think he's mainly talking historic, and then yes, this is when a lot of the use of the multi-megaton nuclear weapons did exist, but the modern ones are fusion weapons that are in the hundreds of kiloton range and maybe a few single-digit megatons. But what makes them devastating is their reach, their accuracy, more so than just their yield.
Thousands of tons of TNT, millions of tons of TNT. Now one person who pushes a button or has a rocket to deliver ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. I can sit here in the comfort of my chair, control a missile on my sovereign land. It'll enter suborbital because it leaves our atmosphere.
Okay, so I get what he's trying to get at in terms, he's talking about the destructive potential, increasing energy density, but we're drifting into nuclear mythology here. There's no cartoon red button, one random officer, one random dictator, if you will, that does nuclear launch authority like that. They involve authentication chains, command verification, launch protocols, and it's all based on redundancy, second strike doctrine, so which is a bit of a way to discourage one person from doing something like this, because a lot of nuclear powers have nuclear submarines, for instance, that even if you do hit the targetable nuclear weapons platforms, there's still the ones that are hard to find. So I don't know if this makes it less terrifying, because it's not one madman losing control. It's that you have rational systems interacting under severe time pressure, so on the order of minutes, to make these decisions with incomplete information. So nuclear war risk historically comes less from person in cozy couch maliciously pushing giant red button, and more about miscalculation, false alarms, escalation spirals, can even argue it's a bit of a game theory trap if you want to go there. That's the more realistic portion to be concerned about.
Can't travel that far without resistance through the air. It leaves our atmosphere, goes its distance, comes back out of the sky, hits its target. You can kill 1 million people. Clearly that's...
Again, you could, but ideally you're going to start with hitting the enemy's nuclear weapons platforms, which typically are not going to have 1 million people clustered around them.
A highly unstable situation. Because now we are beholden to the sanity of anyone who has access to that button. Given the neurodiversity of our species, not everyone...
There's multiple checks, though. So I would argue rather than one person losing it, it's more about a system and and making sure that its flaws are documented and contingencies are dealt with. So it's more about, I'd look at it from more the system engineering perspective than dictator psychology.
Has the rational capacity to make a decision that would be in the interest of the world's health, wealth, and security. I'm old enough to remember MAD, mutual assured destruction.
So this is still, I mean, yes, that's what the doctrine was really called and still is. And that works. You put that in as many layers of quotes as you want, because no side can guarantee disarming the other entirely. So therefore, first strike guarantees retaliation. Therefore, nobody rational is going to strike first. So survivability creates stability. And Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, for instance, is basically a secondary, stealthy revenge strike machine. That is to say, well, even if you destroy all of the land-based nuclear weapons, you take out all the airfields that have the nuclear bombers, of course they can still take off before you destroy them, so even that's not hard fast, then you're still gonna get hit badly from the second strike. And what's interesting is that threat has likely prevented more great power wars since it existed for decades than historical precedent. So nuclear weapons are horrifying, sure. Not going to debate that. But large-scale conventional great power wars might be even worse over long time scales, such as World War II. Tens of millions without nuclear exchanges. Nuclear deterrence might have frozen conflicts below the threshold of industrial total war. I don't think that's going to make anybody feel any better, but that still makes it strategically significant.
It was the realization that if there's a first strike, while the weapons are airborne, spaceborne, while they're leaving the atmosphere, that's enough time for you to launch your weapons.
Space nukes.
If the country wants to really get at you, they'll attack you and your allies. So now everybody starts launching weapons. If you have total nuclear exchange and you ignite the forests and the vegetation of the world, this converts living plant tissue
here we go with the nuclear
carbon
winter.
soot that goes into the air, blocking sunlight.
Now you could argue that hitting cities could cause even more just because of the density of the soot there, if you're going to go that route with this argument.
This was the famous nuclear winter that was described in the early 1980s.
So, yes, and there were some seriously outdated assumptions there.
Computing power was just becoming good enough to address the question of what happens if you darken the skies all around the world. The temperature of the earth drops. Plants that depend on sunlight die. Animals that depend on plants.
There's just enough with this model is doing a whole lot of heavy lifting here when you see these numbers on screen.
Die. Animals that depend on plants die in sequence. And you have nuclear holocaust, not only affecting Earth life, but plant life and other animal life as well.
Full on opaque to sunlight Earth here. All right. So there are kernels of truth here. Soot injection, sunlight reduction, not absolute sunlight reduction worth 100%, but sunlight reduction and agriculture collapse are concerns. but it's still heavily debated among climate scientists in terms of severity and assumptions of this nuclear winter effect. So the original models assumed extremely high urban fire ignition rates, like in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, largely wooden structures, and the absence of modern fire protection engineering. Questionable. Optimal soot lofting that lingers for years to decades rather than hours to days, which is also questionable. Global distribution efficiencies of a northern hemisphere nuclear exchange that's going to affect all the way down to the South Pole, which is also questionable. And very large exchanges with even more nuclear weapons than what we have today. So modern models are more sophisticated, but there's even more uncertainty than a lot of people think. So there's no neatly packed end of the world scenario here. What is true is that a massive nuclear exchange would still be globally catastrophically, economically, and agriculturally. But civilization ending apocalyptic winter conditions everywhere on Earth is unlikely. Now, localized effects, sure, like the zones that were hit directly, and a lot of that will just depend on the weather, just like anything else. And targets are also not going to be evenly distributed. Again, the targeting priorities are going to be the enemy's nuclear weapons. So silos, air bases, command centers, naval bases, military targets. And then it's going to be to the industrial hubs. It's not going to be as random, and that matters a lot more for soot injection and climate effects. So not deliberately targeting agriculture and forests.
The nuclear winter scenario, it assumed that the weapons would be equally distributed on Earth's surface. That's generally not how this works.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. If you're launching nukes, you're going to launch it at the missile silos that might have other nukes that haven't launched yet. And you're going to launch it towards cities with multiple nukes coming into the same city.
And that's because some nukes might not go off, and some nukes might miss, and some nukes might get shot down.
You won't get the spread that initial calculation had presumed.
And you're going to get like a weird, uneven patchwork. Some areas are going to be flat out destroyed. Some are going to be moderate to anywhere from low to severe levels of devastation. And then some areas are going to look completely unscathed. It's not even. It's not as easy. Easy is not the right word at all, but as clean of a scenario, a binary scenario being a on-off switch for nuclear winter that completely blocks out the sun, everyone's doomed. It's gonna be patchy like everything else, just like the fallout effects, just like the thermal effects, just like really any effects of war. It's gonna be sloppy.
But what it did do was birth an entire science of long-term climate modeling.
Okay.
From assaults.
That paper right there that he's showing is the study that a lot of people reference
on the environment
from the 80s.
And out of that, we got to have great confidence that the dinosaurs were taken out by an asteroid the size of Mount Everest that struck the Yucatan Peninsula off of Mexico, cast dust into the air, plunging Earth into darkness.
This also shows that there's nothing magical about nuclear weapons that are capable of doing this. It's really anything with a ridiculously high yield. And the impact, that asteroid impact right there, makes nuclear weapons seem insignificant. So talking about the escalation of destructive forces here, this is taking you well up into like sci-fi civilization territory here.
Rendering 70% of all species of life on Earth and in the ocean extinct.
And here's one other bit of baseline there. So that asteroid, many millions of times higher yield than all of the Earth's nuclear weapons at once. That did not end all life on Earth.
The world quickly realized how deadly this is. It's not just a bow and an arrow. It's not just fisticuffs.
We're still a ways away from asteroid diversions into Earth technology. Yeah, we're not quite there yet, so you don't need to worry about that one for a little while anyway.
It is an asymmetry in warfare that had never been seen before. I'm reminded of a quote from Albert Einstein. I don't know how World War III will be fought. But I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
Yes, I'm familiar with that quote. I mean, it's less of an absolute thing, and it's more of just him trying to make a statement. There wasn't like analysis behind that term. I mean, that's not even really a science thing. That's more of a geopolitical thing anyway.
That's where war and the science of war has taken us. Scientists...
No, what's interesting is that also brings up the point, if you're talking about the whole asteroid thing, here we are going back to throwing rocks, just the rocks are a little bigger.
Have historically been complicit in the waging of war. Governments, be they warmongering or otherwise, have always reached for the ingenuity and creativity of scientists and engineers.
And that's true, but scientists and engineers are tools of civilization. I mean, the same nuclear physics gives you nuclear weapons, but also life-saving nuclear medicine, safe, clean, reliable nuclear power plants, RTGs for space probes, cancer treatment, and the ability to power systems in deep space. The technology itself is morally inert. Civilizations decide how to apply it. A reactor operator and a bomb designer reference overlapping physics textbooks while producing radically different outcomes. And military funding often accelerates technological development that isn't necessarily just about making weapons. You can look at radar, jet engines, the internet, computers, satellites, and the list goes on since the beginning of human civilization. So this is the bit of an uncomfortable statement here, is war is horrific, but war can also massively accelerate applied engineering, which isn't exactly a comfortable statement.
Of all stripes. You know, where do you get chemical weapons from? You go to the chemist. Bio warfare, you go to the biologist. The astrophysicist, we don't make bombs, we don't...
You can deflect asteroids into planets, it's coming. We're kind of leaning on that one with this video, it seems.
No, but we care about multispectral imaging in dark places. We care about coordinates on Earth and in the heavens. We care about
coordinates that you can drop bombs. There we go. All right.
Timing. What is a physicist an expert at? It's matter, motion, and energy. And what is a military battle of any kind? It's I have energy over here.
Okay.
And I want to put it over there. It could be I have a bullet here sitting in my gun, but I want to put that bullet over there with energy that I give it.
Okay, so wow, all right, I think we actually agree on a lot of things in terms of this aspect, because yeah, he's getting at the energy transfer.
I have a bow and arrow. I pull the string, pumping potential energy into the bow. When I let go, the bow springs forward, the arrow goes, sending kinetic energy over here to over there. That is the basis of essentially every military conflict. There is no war that is won without the exploitation of science and technology.
Yep, warfare is essentially applied industrial physics under adversarial conditions. So yeah, the side that detects faster, computes faster, moves energy farther, faster, and more efficiently, sustains logistics longer, and replaces their losses faster, generally wins, at least militarily, politics notwithstanding. And the other uncomfortable thing that I think Hollywood gets wrong about war is industrial base matters a lot more than any sort of heroics at scale. The heroics are more of outliers, rounding errors, relatively insignificant compared to the overall base throughput of everything. Industrial powerhouses such as the US or the Soviet Union during World War II were terrifying because they became continental scale industrial reactors. Ships, tanks, aircraft, steel, fuel, logistics, relentless throughput.
At its center. A little bit about me and my history. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. All I ever knew was the Vietnam War. I grew up in an era where war is bad.
Yeah.
War is bad. How could war ever be good? But meanwhile, I'm still observant, and I look around town, and there's statues to war heroes, military servicemen standing proud. And I said, how is it that I could think war is bad where apparently at all these other times, not the time coincident with the Vietnam War, but at all these other times, war was commemorated with pride and, dare I say, even celebrated. That's what kind of Memorial Day and Veterans Day is all about. You are celebrating those who fought in wars and commemorating those who died in wars. This is a celebration.
And this is more about sociology and psychology here. So, with what I say next, good chance I'm going to be wrong about it. So, beware. So, and that's to do with public perception of war changing dramatically based on proximity, the media exposure, whether or not you won, and the overall narrative of the state of what country you're in. That is to say, a victorious war against an enemy, an unambiguous enemy like World War II, gets memorialized. But a traumatic, inconclusive war, or just a straight-up loss, and there's a few historical disagreements on the Vietnam War about that, that's going to get questioned, which is less of hypocrisy and more about psychology interacting with historic outcome. So I don't necessarily see that as hypocritical. It's more of depends on the war kind of a deal.
The recognition. Whereas in the Vietnam era, there was none of that. So that's where I was forged. My sense of war was forged. But my rational mind was saying, what is the rest of this about?
Yeah.
There are occasions where, war is necessary. A bad actor rises up, whose interests do not comport with what we might think of as civilization.
Yeah, and I would agree, because ultimately rational engineering logic has to collide with the reality of the place in which we live. If a hostile power is expansionist or existentially threatening, negotiation might fail, deterrence might fail, sanctions, really anything less than force might fail. Not saying it should be the default option, but at some point, force does indeed become the enforcement mechanism behind civilization and progress. So, you can see this, I mean, this isn't really a debate, this is why every stable society ultimately maintains some organized violence capability, like police force, military force, some form of enforcement, and some form of deterrence. You don't even have to call it the military, you can call it the defense force, but it's still there. Because after all, without enforcement, the rules become suggestions. And again, this is harsh, and I guarantee you people are going to disagree with this, which is fine. But engineering, especially nuclear engineering, doesn't really care about emotional preference. Bridges either hold load or they collapse. Nuclear power plants are either stable or unstable. Deterrence either works or fails. And reality grades on performance, not wishful thinking.
The preservation and prolonging of civilization as we have built it and as we have come to embrace it. Easily, who comes to mind, of course, is Adolf Hitler. Yes, there are times when you are fighting evil forces. But you have to ask who defines who's evil.
Yep.
In starting and making a war, not the right is what matters, but victory. The strongest has the right.
And in terms of strongest, go back to the whole discussion on energy throughput, replaceability, sustainability, logistics, and all aspects of that. I mean, yeah, getting a bit Machiavellian there.
It's hard to argue against the idea that to protect freedom is a good thing. And the fact that freedom isn't always free. It reminds me, I saw a comic long
Freedom costs $1.05. Though with today's inflation, it's probably true fitting.
ago where two people are facing each other with a bow and arrow pointed right at each other's necks. And each one says at the same time, the harder I pull, the safer I feel. It's like, really?
Yeah, and that's a good analogy for arms races. And keep in mind, nuclear weapons did not... They're the most well-known arms races, but you can look at from historical naval buildups, for instance. So one side builds defenses, the other side interprets that as offense preparation. Both escalate and both generally feel less safe. And with modern technology, so it's not just in terms of energy in this case, it's also speed. The automation compresses timelines of some of these processes. So cyber warfare, AI-assisted targeting, that can reduce the reaction time, which have the potential to increase instability.
As a scientist, when we disagree with one another, we might argue our case vociferously. Some people are a little more emotionally invested in their ideas than others. So it can get heated. But at the end of the day, you know what we say to each other? We need more data.
Yes, and that is the real telling aspect about scientists. Though in the case of engineering and in case of operations, you don't always have that luxury. Sometimes you have to make decisions with 20% of the data. And a lot of times that's enough, but I know that kind of gets people who succumb to the whole analysis paralysis thing.
When more data come in and then it resolves the conflict, then we agree, go out, have a beer, and then move on to the next frontier question. That's the brain wiring of a scientist.
So here's one caveat. Unfortunately, states, governments, nations, civilizations do not operate under laboratory conditions. Scientists seek truth, whereas countries seek survival. Those are not always aligned. So that is to say, sometimes you might operate under some level of uncertainty because waiting for perfect data could mean, well, losing the war. So as much as I love pure science, you can't necessarily use that logic everywhere.
It's not the brain wiring of politicians or
ain't that the truth?
Many other sort of sectors of society where they need to interact with others. I've had some exposure to military operations. Now, I never served in the military, not as a...
Neither have I, just full disclosure. I know a lot of people in a nuclear background have. A lot of my coworkers did, but I did not.
As a soldier, but I did serve on a board of the Pentagon, the Defense Innovation Board.
Okay.
It was an attempt to...
That's not nothing.
alert the military that the strength in armies going forward, the strength of nations going forward, is not measured by how many soldiers are on the ground. It's not even necessarily measured by how many nukes you have in your silos. It could be measured by how clever you are with either computing or calculations or strategies that come from a place that's not just how big is your weapon.
So I would look at this as far as system engineering computation. AI, computation, automation, gonna add manufacturing, gonna add energy production, because that's my thing. That's getting into future dominance and ultimately about orbital infrastructure, which we're not quite there yet, but we're talking about the future, so so yeah, rather than weapons, it can be about grids, so power generation and distribution, semiconductors, supply chain. Of course, you can argue that's been the case since early human history, just the materials are a little bit different. And of course, AI models. So yeah, I see civilization warfare as system engineering competition.
You look at the reasons why people have fought wars over the years. A common one is access to limited resources. I want what you have. I need what you have. Oh, you're not going to share it? You're not going to give it to me, therefore I'm going to take it. Well, you can only do that. You can only threaten to do that if you have the resources, the financial resources, the scientific resources, the engineering resources. Other reasons why people...
Nice, mention engineering.
...fight with limited access to resources, yes. Religion. Again, I come to it as a scientist. If there's a batch of scientists over there who say, E doesn't equal MC squared, E equals MC cubed. Are we going to go to war?
That's why hypermatter reactors in Star Wars are so powerful. They use E greater than MC squared. Nah, but seriously, it's kind of interesting.
Over that? No. I would say, no, let me show you why that is not true. And I would demonstrate it with experiments and examples. That doesn't work as well when you have belief systems. If you come from a belief system, then what you believe doesn't have the evidence that science would normally require to establish what is objectively true. That's why they're called belief systems, because you believe that something is true.
So I'm going to extend this one a little bit. This is an interesting point he brings up, just strictly calling it belief systems. Though, and that's because a lot of wars might not seem to be irrational within the participants of the belligerents' perspectives. They can appear to be internally rational within the belief structure of the society involved. Now that doesn't make them morally good, but that can make them strategically understandable if you view it from that lens and you essentially plug that belief system, that programming when you do your risk assessment as far as war is concerned. So you can get some level of strategic certainty about another side's perceived certainty around a system of beliefs, which I think is fascinating.
Now, you may believe it so strongly that you know it's true, but that's an internal emotion that you carry. Belief systems are such that it may be true for you, but it's not really true for other people unless you convince them of it. And since it's based on belief, rational arguments tend to not work. You need methods of coercion or force, ultimately threat of violence, perhaps even threat of death. And so some of the most violent encounters civilization has ever had with itself is when one warring faction has a belief system that differs from that of their adversary. It's interesting to ask of ourselves in society, is there anything you would die for? You get one chance in life. What I have found is that the less tangible the thing is you're fighting for, the more abstract it is,
that's interesting,
the less evidence there is in support of it, the more willing people are to die for it.
Can almost just look at it as like a pre-programmed algorithm that generates when dealing with this adversary. It's fascinating.
And so war always seems to be this glorious thing at the beginning, and then the body bags start coming back, and not only military casualties, but civilian casualties.
And this, I don't know if that's still as much true today, but that was certainly true historically. You talk about honor and duty or war for liberation or something, and then the attrition arrives. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's looked at less so today, is because modern warfare in industrial civilizations is fundamentally attritional, whether it be personnel, machines, resources, infrastructure. And that's why war, especially prolonged wars, even the side that wins can lose. And I'm not even getting into nuclear war yet. I'm just talking about a war that just is costly.
Just trying to live their lives, who are now susceptible to decisions made by people in power, who generally are not themselves the same people who go do the fighting. I find that dismaying, just being human in civilization as a scientist. But it's real, and it happens, and that's how the world is put together. With or without the League of Nations, coming out of the First World War, with or without the United Nations, after the Second World War, with charters that are signed, Geneva Conventions. At the end of the day, you can ask the question, can we just all get along? Let me end on a slightly more positive note. All the UFOs people have been seeing in the sky, lights that we can't explain.
Sure.
I'm glad some part of the military budget is going to investigating them. Because people have been seeing them for decades. I've never seen anything that I couldn't identify. I know a lot about weather and climate and sky conditions and planets and moon and what they do and weird things that they do. So I've never seen anything I couldn't explain. So it was all IFOs to me. But maybe some of these UFOs
or just FOs
would pose a danger to us.
Okay.
Again, to our health and our wealth. So I'd want the military to check it out. And if it's a threat from space, maybe the greatest task of all would be to protect Earth from aliens.
So this is a recurring sci-fi theme here about external threats unifying fragmented civilizations. So you get the Federation, United Federation of Planets from Star Trek, the UNSC from Halo, the Systems Alliance from Mass Effect. You can kind of argue it's the Rebel Alliance from Star Wars, but that's a little bit different. But yeah, the point being that shared existential threats can suppress internal divisions, and there's historical examples of this too. Not just talking sci-fi. So, but yeah, I don't disagree that a genuinely hostile extraterrestrial civilization would probably unify Earth almost instantly. Not out of enlightenment, but out of survival instinct. Now, the problem is, we're pretty low on the totem pole relative to any theoretical extraterrestrial civilization coming for us. And we would not stand a chance against threats like the Borg, the Covenant, the Reapers, or the Empire. And probably my favorite example of this is if you've ever played the game Stellaris and you look at a primitive civilization there from the perspective of the advanced alien civilization. You just see them as a teeny tiny speck, smaller than a speck, because a speck is a solar system in Stellaris, as fragmented nation states on a single planet. And even the weakest units you start with at the beginning of the game would effortlessly conquer them. So, yeah. Our civilization isn't ready for that type of adversary.
In fact, in the 1980s, President Reagan, addressing the UN, said just that. He said, here we are with all of our differences. He was still in the Cold War, by the way. With all of our differences, imagine how close we would be together if we had to fight a common enemy such as an invader from space.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize.
Universal threat. Okay, so yeah, Type 4 civilization. Yeah, I don't think so.
Is this common bound?
If that's what it takes for us to get along, I guess so. But I still believe.
Nah, it would be worse than our existing conflicts. Taken literally, I get what Reagan was trying to say.
I believe in the power of conversation and the power of coexistence, because that's what makes a beautiful world. That we can all be different, but yet all be together with common causes, common goals that are sensible, rational, sane, and will feed the future of our health, our wealth, and our security. Thanks for listening.
This was an interesting one because at least in terms of the philosophy, I think I agreed with him at least 80%. I mean, after war is energy, industry, psychology, logistics, and survival pressures interacting simultaneously. And nuclear weapons changed a lot of that because they broke the relationship between industrial effort and destructive output. And the real lesson here of the nuclear age, I don't think is that humans became too violent. It's that humans became powerful enough that losing control for a short time could end these industrial level systems. And that reshapes that the more important technologies going forward aren't more powerful weapons. It's better power generation and infrastructure, resilient infrastructure, command systems, safeguards, warning systems, and the overall energy abundance sufficient enough to reduce the resource competition itself, such as generating large amounts of abundant carbon-free baseload energy the way nuclear power does. Because at the end of the day, our civilizations are still running on some ancient software, and that is us tribal humans inside exponentially more powerful machines. Thanks so much for the recommendation, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
knows to travel light. A druid knows to travel light. Cannot carry anymore. Cannot carry anymore. A druid knows to travel light. again? Blood mad fiends! Miles taken! Earthquakes! Ancient Blight! Begone, foul creature! this machine. Begone, foul creature! Nature takes what's old. Corruption lingers still. I need more time for that. All this slaughter just to feed their thirst for power.
What do you think?
Tremble! Begone, foul creature! Violence of death! Shake the tree, she will fall. Death waits!
this is what we have available. Deal.
Tremble! Wilds take you! Blood for blood! The ball keeps coughing him up! Nature takes what's owed! Can I carry any more? Gotcha.
Speak.
Greetings. What do you think? treasures. Deal. Welcome. Quachik.
Balance restored! Wild's curse! show you what true intellect looks like. Ravaging power! I will burn you alive!
Choose what you need. Gold is useless to me. You have the face very sane.
is written in ash. Fear the void control you, so she may be reborn. Consequential. You tarry, you rot, you another vessel of sorrow. Gods, ascendants of the feeble, cursed supple flesh and mind. Sacred fire of the mother soul, you are called upon. Your death was foretold. Too late. The fourth edict already burns for your finality. Fields of ash bosoms of flame shall restore her glory. Her only salvation is written in ash. Humanity has failed. It must start again. Acquiesce, mortal. Consequential. Acquiesce. Their end's come, and mine can wait a little longer. Nothing to sneeze at.
You made it out alive. Good. Now,
Where to?
tell me.
That said,
This, give me. Judging from this mural, an immense tower must have played a vital role in their defense. It seems their leaders gathered at its peak, perhaps electing some sort of champion to fight for them. I am unclear what the final mural depicts exactly, but it appears the Abyssals were indeed defeated. We must reach the... perhaps with further...
nature does not forget.
beast! Begone, foul creature! Let's take it. Down, beast! Rend the earth! Pack's heavy enough already. A druid knows to travel light.
art supply. A useful trade. Of course.
Cursed creation! Tremble! Balance restored! Nature takes what's owed! Take it.
These are as expected.
Earthquakes! Nature's fury! Nature takes what's old. Twisted thing! Nature takes what's owed. That's heavy enough already. Balance restored. full up.
How can I help? This is what we have available.
Cannot trust a stone to stay still here.
what's old.
I'll hold this medallion for you.
This is what comes of meddling with nature. travel light. I'm not ready yet.
rather beautiful. This tome has drawings that look just like this room.
Tome? What tome?
This one. I found it in our explorations.
That's the Edsley Peely. How do you have that? It's forbidden knowledge. Everything in there is too volatile or dangerous to use.
It's a bit late to worry about that, isn't it? When fortune smiles, shake her hand, I always say.
Fine. Use it we shall. What does it say?
It seems 2 high priests must give a sacrifice of living blood. The medallion should then unlock the royal chambers.
Step forward with me. I am possessed by a peculiar notion.
Oh, Dorian. Your weakness shall mean your end. Come, if you must.
It worked! But why?
If I survive this, we'll speak on it later. Now, we must face my queen.
Understood. Good luck, you two.
This is it. Her chambers. We're not too late.
Time the Red Queen was knocked off her perch.
Atziri, should you proceed, this means the doom of the Val.
To doubt your queen. To defy her. I never expected it of you, my most loyal pet.
I beg of you, hear me. The beast cannot give you what you desire.
You may have studied it, Doriani. But you do not know it like I do. It adores me. Come now, give unto me your desire. At last, fulfill my soul. Ascension is at hand. Bow before me. Scorch. I will succeed. don't understand our connection. They could never understand. I am eternal. Bang and venom. Is mine. Death demands you. You will feed my sweet Ochiti. Scorched.
Earthquakes!
Seduce and conquer. Ochiti is mine. My ascension has begun. Zerfi showed us what comes of suffering, of prolonged pain, of sacrifice. I have given so many. I will have what I am of. Take me, Vegeti! I am yours! Give me eternity!
Come on, hurry! We must. I bought us time. Time is of the essence.
Hoarded enough riches to feed the world twice over. I'm full up. That's heavy enough already. Nature doesn't forget. A tidy sum. Ancient secrets laid bare. corruption lingers still. A druid knows to travel light.
Speak.
How can I help?
many services. Goodbye.
Ancient light! Wilds take ya! Cannot trust a stone to Stacy. Nature takes what's old. Corruption lingers stuck. Tremble! take it. What mad fiends! Begone, foul creature! You have come too far. My desire never fails. Consider
Another medallion. Hello.
Speak.
to travel light.
The earthquakes! Get on, foul creature! Foul scourge! Wild's taking!